Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about The Crow, released in 1994, directed by Alex Proyas, written by David J. Show and John Shirley, from a comic book series and comic strip by James O'Barr, and starring Brandon Lee, Ernie Hudson, Michael Wincott, and Michael Massey, along with a few other character actors and folks that I had never really heard of before. Actually, I looked up the girl that plays Sarah because I was curious if she had gone on to do anything. And the answer is no, not really. This was, I believe, her first movie. And then her next credit wasn't until 2005.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she's only had like two other credits since then. Mm-hmm. And they were nothing I'd really heard of. So this is basically her only credit. So I had seen this movie before, Stu, but I watched it, I believe, when I was working at Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. And so I had not seen it in about 20 years. So this was essentially a first time viewing for me. Mm-hmm. And I believe this was a first time viewing for you as well, right?
Yes, it was. It was a first time viewing for me as well. I enjoyed it. It was a little different than what I was expecting. But for the most part, it was what I thought it was, but the tone was a little lighter.
Oh, really?
Than what I was expecting. But I like I said, I enjoyed it. I know some people hold this movie in like very high regard. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it quite that much, but it was, I like the tone of it for the most part. And it was like it was like a noir feel.
Yeah.
And it was realistic, like just realistic enough for you to believe what's going on, but it still had a slight fantasy element to it, obviously, mm-hmm. because of the crow itself and
coming back from the dead. Yeah,
him coming back from the dead. But it kind of reminded me of Batman '89 as far as like the tone. It was realistic, just realistic enough for you to believe it, but that fantastic element to it made it, a little bit otherworldly, which I thought was balanced very well.
Yeah. I would agree. It's interesting that you mentioned Batman, because on the back of the DVD, there's a quote from the Chicago Tribune that says the best movie of its kind since the original Batman. So you and the Chicago Tribune, I guess, were on the same page there. I agree with you. The first time I watched it, well, actually, I'll tell you. So I remember buying this movie from Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. I had a Blockbuster gift card and I didn't know what to spend it on. It was probably around Christmas time or something. And I asked my store manager at the time. His name was Rusty. And I don't remember what the other movie was that I was thinking about buying, but I was like, should I buy The Crow or should I buy this? And he goes, well, that's an easy question for me. He goes, because The Crow is my favorite movie of all time. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. So I bought The Crow and I watched it. And I'm pretty sure my thought was, that was okay. I just like, I didn't think it was nearly as amazing as my store manager obviously did. And then I had another manager there that was a really big fan of it too. And I don't know. I mean, there's pieces of the movie and watching it yesterday, I had basically the same experience. I really like kind of the aesthetic.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about the movie is the feel of it.
Right. And I agree completely. You put it into these great words about how it feels realistic, but otherworldly. Like the city feels real, but it also feels unreal kind of at the same time. Yeah. Like there are these sweeping shots of the city and it doesn't really look like a real city, but it also feels real.
Yeah.
So it's very well done that way. And there's moments in the movie that I really, really like. But overall, I don't think there's that much substance, I guess you could say, to it. It's essentially just a revenge tale.
Yeah.
With a supernatural kind of twist, But there is that noir feeling to it, especially like sometimes there's the music, the composer is Graham Revell. and he kind of has like that solo trumpet kind of playing kind of in the background a little bit, which is, you know, kind of gives that noir kind of, I always think of like the private eye, the alcoholic, you know, private eye who's like down on his luck, and you hear that trumpet kind of playing. That's what I think of when I hear that type of music. And so it has that kind of feel to it, which is really, really cool. And like I said, there are moments in the movie that really I think are great, and we'll talk about those. But overall, it's just it's a very kind of simple story, and I don't know, maybe if I'd seen it in '94, I would have thought it was incredible. But even seeing it in the early 2000s, I just was, you know, I like it, but I don't love it. It's not going to be in my top 10 movies or anything like that.
For sure. I think you and I feel pretty similar. I think I may have liked it a little bit more than you did.
Well, it could be.
But I you know, what you said was on point. I like it. I didn't love it. I don't know if I would like it anymore if I had seen it earlier, because they're just, you know, there are some things that aren't necessarily, they don't, the time of that the movie was made is not relevant to the things that I don't like.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't think that that would have changed my opinion had I seen it earlier. Maybe if I was younger, I would have, you know, forgiven those things. But, you know, I've been watching a lot more movies lately, a lot of different type of movies that I normally wouldn't watch. So I'm kind of seeing things from a different perspective. But I don't quite understand why people hold it in such high regard. I mean, it's definitely an enjoyable movie. I definitely did not find myself like wanting to turn it off or getting too bored. There are a few slow parts in the second act, but it wasn't like excruciatingly boring at any point. Right. But I'm having trouble seeing like what is the appeal? Yeah. Like what makes this movie amazing? What makes this movie better than other movies of its kind?
Right. Yeah. I can't answer that, but if I had to guess, I would say the aesthetic has got to be a big part of it, you know? Just the look of the movie. There's one shot that I absolutely love, and it's right after Eric is well, it's not right after he's resurrected, but he's resurrected and he makes his way back to his apartment, and he kind of realizes what happened. He has those flashbacks of the gang entering his home and assaulting them. And he gets dressed as the Crow, or, you know, he gets dressed in the makeup and stuff. And it's like kind of almost a slow motion shot of him walking towards the window, and the Crow comes and lands on his shoulder.
That's a great shot.
Oh, that was beautiful. And so I've got to guess it's just stuff like that. Like it's those shots and those elements, things like that, which I think are really cool. People must just really connect it to. I don't know. Maybe the people out there really do love the story. You know, maybe they like that it's a revenge tale and it's this supernatural element. I don't know, but but for me, it's just it's got a lot of cool moments, but it's the sum of its parts is not quite there for me. But but it's like you said, I agree with you what you said. It's not a bad movie. It's not like I ever was like, come on, how long is this movie? Like I never really felt like that at all. It does slow down. I agree with you a little bit in the second act. I think I started to notice I was looking at my phone a little bit more, you know, in the second act, but I don't regret buying it, you know, or anything like that. So I actually think it would be nice to have this. I watched this on Paramount Plus rather than watching the DVD, and I'm watching the DVD now, and I'm glad I watched it on Paramount Plus because it looks a lot better in HD than it does on this DVD. So it'd be nice to have a Blu-ray or 4K copy of it.
Yeah. I watched it on Paramount Plus as well. But yeah, I think the cinematography of it is really good. Yeah. However, it's edited a little weird. Yeah. One scene in particular, I think it's let me go to my notes here. The scene towards the beginning, after Eric is resurrected and the car takes off. It cuts too soon. Like the car revs up and then takes off, and like a half a second after it takes off, it cuts back to Eric. I was like, that was weird. Why show that little bit of time when the car takes off and then cut directly back to Eric?
Yeah.
And then there are I don't know if these scenes were shot after Brandon Lee had passed, but there are certain shots where his face is obscured.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know the full story behind that. What exactly what happened and how much was filmed before his passing.
I don't know the full story. I know that I'm pretty sure I know what scene it is that he was killed in, because the actor that's apparently accidentally shot him was Michael Massey, who plays Funboy. And so I think it's the scene where he goes into Funboy's house when Funboy's there with Darla, and Funboy shoots him a couple times. So I know that the film was unfinished, but I don't know how much of it was unfinished. I had read that they had finished it with with body doubles and some digital effects or something, which I didn't really notice too much. There's one shot of him running across rooftops that looked a little bit digital to me. But other than that, I didn't really notice any and of course all the people falling looks kind of digital and fake because it's the 90s. But but other than that, I didn't think, I thought they did a pretty decent job of covering it up, that, it wasn't Brandon Lee in those moments. And so that would be my guess, though. If his face is obscured in those shots, it's probably because it wasn't Brandon Lee.
Right.
But it's crazy to me. I mean, it'd be interesting to see the shooting schedule, because they did, I assume I'd have to go back and really look, but I think, Brandon Lee seems to be the guy on the rooftop fighting Michael Wincott's character at the end and everything like that. So it's like they did all that before they did the Funboy scene and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I also read that Michael Massey, very understandably, was completely traumatized by the accident, and apparently quit acting for a year. And I looked him up because I recognized him and I could not figure out what I knew him from. He was on the first season of 24, and that's what I'm pretty sure I know him from. But
okay, The
Crow was his second credit on IMDb. So it was his second TV or film credit. He may have been like a theater actor before that. I don't know. But his second movie, he accidentally shoots the lead actor of the movie you're making. He obviously is very traumatized and quits acting for a year. He does eventually come back and acts for a while. He sadly passed away in 2016. And according to IMDb, at the time of his passing, he had still not watched The Crow, which I completely understand. I would never watch the movie if that had, if that was something, that had happened. And I also read, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised that after this accident, there became a lot more rigid rules with firearms on set and stuff like that. So I forget. I remember reading about the accident and what had happened, and it was the gun was loaded with blanks, but something got caught in the barrel or something. So it wasn't exactly a bullet that got shot at or something, but it was something got fired from the end of the barrel.
Something came out,
and struck Brandon Lee. And so it is a little interesting to watch this movie, knowing it's kind of like watching The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which is the movie that Heath Ledger made when he died or was making. And so it's a little weird to see the scenes where Eric is getting killed, in the beginning. Just because, I guess it's just kind of morbid of me to think that. But I'm glad that the movie was finished. Apparently, Brandon Lee's, I guess, girlfriend at the time told the director that, Brandon would have wanted you to finish the movie. So I'm glad that they did finish it and it was released. But then there was rumors too about the Lee curse, because Bruce Lee died at a young age and then Brandon Lee died at a young age. So it was the Lee family was cursed apparently or something. I don't know, but I wouldn't say that either. I know. I just saw that shot of the one I was talking about with the crow landing on his shoulder, and man, I just saw it too.
In the wide shot, he's pulling out. He's just standing there in the window.
Yeah, that's a great
shot.
The city. So Alex Proyas, John and I did an episode a little while back on Dark City, which was directed by Alex Proyas. And Dark City looks like, I mean, it's the same, almost the same kind of aesthetic. It looks like the city of Dark City could be this same city. It's very similar, kind of the buildings and the lighting. Like this movie is kind of lit darkly, I guess. And same thing with Dark City, which is obviously very appropriate since it's called Dark City. But yeah, I wonder if it's the same. I didn't look, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the exact same cinematographer for both movies.
It's a very like the lighting is very high contrast. There's a stark difference between the highlights and the shadows.
Right, yeah.
And it kind of creates a little bit of a comic book feel. How like shadows in comic books are like pitch black.
Right. Yeah.
There's not really a whole lot of shading, depending on who the artist is. But it's very, very reminiscent of a comic book, especially like maybe a Frank Miller comic book. Well, I know the blacks are really black.
The Crow comic book is in black and white, and I had read that the director wanted to make the movie in black and white, but the studio pushed back on it. And so I think that was kind of a decision. Okay, I won't do it in black and white, but I'll make it very high contrast. And like,
I think it would have been better in black and white.
I think it kind of would have been too. I think it would have looked kind of cool in black and white. It'd be interesting to see like a black and white version, of this movie.
Yeah. It was crazy because like I was watching it and all the things that I liked, I kept thinking of what I would have done differently. I was like, we talk about remakes and reboots all the time, and how a lot of them are unnecessary and don't need to be made, which is true. As good as this movie is, I think this could be improved upon and updated for a modern audience.
It almost was. Jason Momoa was attached to star in a Crow remake for a long time.
He was attached. Somebody else was attached. I think was it James McAvoy?
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have been James McAvoy, but yeah, those two were attached. But now having watched this, I see why somebody would want to remake it.
Yeah.
To just capitalize on the potential that this movie had. Yeah. Like this could have been like a masterpiece if it had just had a little bit more substance and a little bit better editing.
Right. Yeah.
Because from my understanding, the source material, I forget who created The Crow.
James O'Barr.
James O'Barr. So yeah, he had written this as a way to deal with the grief of the death of his wife.
Oh, okay.
From a drunk driver.
Oh, wow.
And so there are a lot of there's a lot of grief subtext in the source material, especially with the Crow. Like in the source material, the Crow is a spirit and not an actual crow. In the movie, it's an actual crow. Right. But the spirit is kind of critical of Eric because all he does is mope around and be sad that his wife is dead. It's like, then the Crow is like, bro, you gotta let it go.
Yeah.
Like ain't nothing you can do about it. So.
Oh wow.
So the movie doesn't quite go in that direction. I could see if the movie had been made today, I could see it being a little bit more true to the source material.
Yeah. I kind of hope that it does get remade. I know some people might find that blasphemous because, like we've said, there's people that hold this movie in a very high regard. Yes. But I would like to see, and Jason Momoa, I think would have been. I like Jason Momoa. Do you think Jason Momoa would have the range, I guess you could say, the acting range to be able to show the grief and the the emotion there, that kind of what you were talking about?
Grief and emotion, yes. Backtracking a little bit to what I said at the beginning about the tone being a little lighter than what I expected. If they stuck with that tone, because Eric Draven he's kind of funny in this movie.
He does have, he makes jokes and stuff, yeah.
I don't think that Jason Momoa could pull off that type of humor, because it's a very dry type humor. I don't know if he could do that. Every time like Jason Momoa is funny, he's like a bro type character.
Right.
So I don't know if he has the range to pull off dry humor like that. But no, if they played it completely straight and he was very like nihilistic and stoic, like I could definitely see that working for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool. I know there was some makeup tests that were put online of him in the makeup, and it looked great. So yeah, I would like to see another take on it for sure. I was going to say I've never read any Crow comics, but I don't think that's true. I think I did read, I think somebody let me borrow like one of the graphic novels, and I don't remember if I read the whole thing or just some of it, but I clearly don't remember much of it. So really my Crow knowledge is this movie. And like I had said, I hadn't watched it in 20 years. So it was basically a first time viewing essentially. What do you think about, so I think we can both agree Brandon Lee does a pretty amazing job as Eric Draven.
Yeah, he was
fantastic. And I this is the only Brandon Lee movie I've ever seen. He did another, I think his other big movie was called Showdown in Little Tokyo or something like that with Dolph Lundgren. And it was more of a martial arts movie. I actually did read in IMDb trivia that when Brandon Lee was cast, James O'Barr was nervous because he was afraid that The Crow was going to become a kung fu movie. Yeah. And it wasn't until he met Brandon that, Brandon apparently was a big fan of the comic and kind of put his mind at ease and everything. But also in IMDb trivia, apparently when the studio first approached James O'Barr about turning it into a movie, and I hope this is true, they said they wanted to turn it into a musical and cast Michael Jackson in the lead role. And and James O'Barr, according to IMDb trivia, James O'Barr started laughing uncontrollably until he realized that they were being serious. And he was like, what? And thankfully that did not happen. So, yeah.
They were serious?
Apparently they were serious. Yeah. Studios just don't know what they
think that's.
I don't know.
You know what? I know why. Because money.
Yeah, well, yeah. Michael Jackson. It'll bring people in.
He was the biggest. He was the most famous person on the planet. Yeah. Money. So I get it, but make something else. Why would why take someone's creation that is completely different from that and change it to that? I don't understand that.
Can you imagine though? Early 90s, it would have been The Crow with Michael Jackson, and it's a musical. That could have been like the biggest box office flop of all time, maybe. I don't know. Michael Jackson, I mean, if he was writing the music and stuff, I'm sure the music would have been good, but
yeah, the music, I just can't imagine. It looked great, but it would have not have been The Crow.
Right, it would not have been The Crow. That's for sure.
Something else.
Absolutely. What do you think about Michael Wincott as the big bad? I forget his name.
Top Dollar.
Top Dollar. Yeah. They all have interesting names. There's Fun Boy, Tintin, T-Bird, Skank, I think is one of them.
Yeah, he was good. I like the way he played Top Dollar. I don't necessarily like Top Dollar as a villain. He was one dimensional.
That's how I feel. Yep.
I don't really know what his motive was.
I especially don't know what his motive. So one of the cool things about this movie is it starts on October 30th which they call Devil's Night. And apparently every October 30th, like these gangs set fire to the city. Why?
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, exactly. It like the movie is very surface level with its events and its lore and world building.
Yeah.
I think that's where it suffers.
Right.
Like there's not a whole lot of world building.
Right. It actually feels like a very small world. It feels like this city has the one gang, which is run by Top Dollar.
Yeah.
And they start the fires. The cops don't know who or how or why or whatever. They're clueless. Ernie Hudson kind of knows, but he's been demoted because for whatever reason, I don't even remember. He stuck his nose where it doesn't belong or something.
Too good at his job.
Which makes me think that like Top Dollar's paying the cops, but that never really that never is really talked about or anything.
It's possible.
So to me, it just feels very small, and I feel like it could have been bigger. But Top Dollar, I love Michael Wincott. I think he's a great actor. And actually, for a long time, I thought he was the one that accidentally killed Brandon Lee. I got Michael Wincott and Michael Massey confused in my brain. And so I always thought the scene where Brandon Lee died was when he stands up on the table and the whole room is shooting at him. And I thought Michael Wincott kind of blamed himself for it because they didn't know who it was. But I upon reading yesterday, I realized, I was totally wrong about all of that. it was Michael Massey. So anyway, I like Michael Wincott as an actor. He's really good. But I agree, his character just doesn't. He didn't feel very threatening. He just kind of played that stereotypical kind of mob boss who sends all the goons on the missions and stays in. He's snorting cocaine and has the women around him, and yeah, it just felt very one dimensional, like you said. It just didn't. That didn't feel very real. The rest of the gang I thought was fine. They were all out of their minds, especially Fun Boy and like Skank was insane. Tintin, I like that actor who played Tintin, and I like the actor who played T-Bird too. I thought they all did a good job. Yeah.
The gang, they are despicable.
They are very despicable people.
Like they have absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
None. Yeah, none.
They are all horrible people.
Yep. Even the pawn shop owner is, he at least
sleaze.
Yeah, he's sleazy. He at least felt a little more real to me, and it's probably just because that actor is again so good, John Polito.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he's not a good person. Like it's Gotham City, essentially. It's just a town of terrible people with one good cop and now a vigilante. Except this vigilante is not like Batman. He just murders people. This is technically our superhero episode, and I had this under the list of superhero movies. I don't know if I would really consider this a superhero. It's based on a comic book, but it's kind of like, is the Punisher a superhero? Because he just kills people, and this is what the Crow does.
Yeah, and he's like with Eric Draven, he's more like, he's not really saving people. It's a revenge story, so he's just doing this for himself. And, of course, there's the little girl, what's her name? Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah. Sarah, she is connected to him. And so he looks out for her as well. But I mean, for the most part, I don't really consider him a superhero.
Yeah.
I don't even really consider him a vigilante. It's just he's a guy getting revenge for the death of
he's not really
and then the love of his life.
Right. Yeah, because like the Punisher probably started off with a similar storyline where he was avenging his family, but then after a while he just becomes a vigilante who goes after the bad people.
Right. So I think the Punisher is more superheroish
than the Crow. Yeah, because the Crow really literally only goes after the people who hurt him and his wife or killed him and his fiance. They were supposed to get married the next day. I also thought it was kind of weird.
Who gets married on Halloween?
Right. Nobody. Another favorite scene of mine just happened, which is the Crow goes to the pawn shop and he's attacking John Polito, and he as he's leaving, John Polito again gets brave, I guess, enough to yell at Eric, and it's a kind of a close up of him, and he turns around and he says, "Is that gasoline I smell?" And then John Polito, his character's like, "Oh God, I messed up." And so he shoots the building, and it's a cool shot too, because like the fire kind of envelopes Eric.
Yeah, it's a great shot.
It was a really cool moment. And one of my favorite lines comes after that too, which is Ernie Hudson, who, by the way, I totally forgot was in this movie. Ernie Hudson, tells him, "Don't move." He goes, don't move. If I can't. I hate when I do this. I hate when I want to quote the line and I don't remember the line. But he says, don't move or you're dead, I think is what he says. And Eric goes, I move and I'm dead, or something like that. Or I'm dead and I move. And I think I thought that was a pretty good. He delivered it well.
Yeah. One thing that I think they changed from the source material was his healing factor. In the comic book, he doesn't heal. He's invulnerable. That's
so much better.
Yeah.
Because that's actually go ahead.
It's scarier.
Yes.
Like if he really wants to scare the hell out of people and like just let him shoot him and just keep walking. Like don't even show the wound healing. Like just let them shoot at him completely ignoring it. Like that's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, that's true. So his body doesn't heal, but it doesn't it doesn't hurt him really. Is what you're saying, like in the comic?
Yeah, like I was trying to think of an example.
That is scary. That's different than what I was thinking. I didn't write very many notes, but one of the notes I wrote was there's really no stakes in this movie. I said, since we know Eric can't die again, it's pretty straightforward. It's just he goes after the bad guys. They try to hurt him. They can't. And he kills them. And so at the end of the movie, they shoot the crow, which I guess injures because the crow doesn't die, I don't think, but it injures the crow and it basically takes away his invincibility. And so then when he gets shot, then he starts bleeding and he's like, well, I guess I'm not invincible anymore. And I was like, okay, so they had to take it away at the end of the movie in order to give it some sort of stakes. Because and I know Sarah's being held captive at that point, so there's that, and she's obviously not invincible. But it's just for most of the movie, we don't have to worry about Eric because we know he can just heal,
right?
Which it's hard to do. Like you can do it right. Obviously, that's Wolverine, but for whatever reason, like those movies, there's stakes in those movies, and I just didn't feel those stakes in this movie until the very end when Sarah gets kidnapped and his invincibility gets taken away.
Mm-hmm. There is a scene with Fun Boy. He knocks out Fun Boy, and Fun Boy is with Sarah's mom.
Yeah, Darla. Yeah,
Darla, and drags him to the bathtub. And she's sitting in the corner and he grabs her and takes her to the mirror and he says, morphine is bad for you. I thought that was horrible. Why would you do that? Like, why would you say that on the nose line? Morphine is bad for you. Obviously morphine is bad for you.
Right.
But he took her, held her head, and made her look in the mirror, and then the camera goes to the
track marks on her arm.
The track marks on her arm, and then he says morphine is bad for you. Like that was like very. I don't want to say this because this is what I am. It's very amateurish.
Right.
Like that's a mistake I should make. Not somebody, what I'm saying? Not somebody who had, $3 million to make a movie.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. I thought it was interesting how like the morphine came out of the track marks. It was like he was pulling it out of her.
He was,
which was interesting. But yeah, I agree. There maybe poor writing for that scene. Maybe they could have done it a little bit better. And obviously he did scare her straight. Darla goes and she tries to be a good mom for Sarah the next day, and she's not very good at it. But Sarah appreciated it, I guess.
And he does it again with Albrecht, Ernie Hudson's character, with the cigarettes. But I can forgive that because that was more humorous,
right? Yeah.
But that bathroom scene was very cringeworthy.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the scene with Ernie Hudson and Brandon Lee in Ernie Hudson's apartment. And Eric touches Ernie Hudson's head and he gets those images and the feeling of Shelley in the hospital for those 30 hours and stuff. I don't know. I just really enjoyed that moment between the two of them. I thought it was a really good scene. And
I agree. That was a good scene. The funny thing about that scene is Ernie Hudson still had his hat on.
Right, yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, why does he still have his hat on? And right after I thought it, Eric says, you still got your hat on, right?
He's like, oh, God.
Oh.
Yeah, I like that, too. I thought that was pretty good. Ernie Hudson, I thought, does a great job in this movie, too.
For sure.
He played, his character felt very real to me. I didn't really love the detective guy that's always just kind of yelling at him. He played very kind of one-dimensional to me too.
Yeah.
But I liked Ernie Hudson. I thought he did a great job. His character seemed very, he plays the kind cop. He takes care of Sarah, buys her the hot dogs. He feels like somebody that you could, who could be kind of a protector, who's also knows that there's a lot of, he doesn't necessarily think he's like, I feel like he's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I was going to say, like, he doesn't necessarily approve of what Eric is doing, but at the same time is kind of okay with it because he knows that Top Dollar and his gang is right. Yeah. He knows that Top Dollar and his gang is awful people and ruining the city,
like the worst kind of people,
right? And he even says at the end, I kind of chuckled, was he tells Eric, he's like, okay, you go do this and then I'll arrest them. And Eric is even like, you're not going to arrest them.
Like, no.
So I'm almost at that scene that you're just talking about with Darla and the morphine. It's the scene with Funboy and Eric. So this apparently, I guess, is the scene. And I don't think the shot of him dying is actually, or, of actually being fatally wounded is in the movie. I don't think they included that. But I guess but I would assume it would be this scene.
That shot of his hand is not great.
Yeah, it's a little dated. The effects on that are a little dated. Yeah. Even there's two of them. There's one that's clearly like a prosthetic.
A prosthetic.
And then there's a digital one, and both of those shots don't look very good.
No, the digital one looks a little better, but not much.
Both of them, you can tell it's fake shit, sort of.
It's because the lighting is different.
Yeah.
The lighting is different on his hand than it is on his face.
I wasn't sure, I couldn't tell if he had actually killed Funboy. I know Funboy actually, I guess, shoots himself in the leg. Yeah. And I know you can bleed out from, there's an artery in your leg that you can easily bleed out from, but he then drags him into the bathroom. And so I wasn't sure if he was actually dead or not, but you don't see Funboy for the rest of the movie. So I guess he died.
I thought he was dead, but I think in a couple minutes, like you see him like moving in the bathtub or whatever. So I don't think he's dead.
Oh, does he blow up the building or something? Does Eric do that? I just can't. I couldn't figure out why Funboy never showed back up. Obviously, I mean, I guess he's in the hospital, if anything.
Yeah.
But why leave Funboy alive? It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Here's your favorite shot. Your favorite scene.
I forgot he said that line
about Mother being the
You could have left it at that,
and just had showed the stuff coming out of the track marks, and left it at that rather than saying
you didn't have to say
morphine is bad for you.
Morphine is bad for you. You know what it reminded me of? You ever seen Black Dynamite?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah.
It reminded me of the flashback scene when he's talking to his brother. He was like, you are my 12-year-old little brother and I'm your 16-year-old little brother. Like, we don't need you to say that. We know that you guys are brothers.
That's actually a pet peeve of mine in movies where, and maybe people say this and it just doesn't happen in my family, but I always hate when it's established that they're brothers because one of them goes, oh, come on, little brother, or, whatever. Come on, little bro, because nobody says that. And so
nobody says that.
It drives me crazy. I hate when they do that type of stuff. The soundtrack for this movie, not just the score, but the actual soundtrack is pretty good. It's got some, 90s grunge or whatever kind of hits on it. Stone Temple Pilots has a great song on it.
Yeah.
9 Inch Nails. I was listening.
I thought I recognized 9 Inch Nails.
The 9 Inch Nails song is actually pretty good. It's probably one of the Stone Temple Pilots and the 9 Inch Nails song are probably the two best songs on the soundtrack. The Cure Rage Against the Machine, Rollins Band, Pantera. It's got some good stuff. Some good 90s, hard rock, grunge rock
right now,
type stuff.
Funboy's still alive. He just pulled him out of the tub, and now he's about to do something.
Oh, okay. So this might have been where I started looking at my phone. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I try not to do that when I'm. Oh yeah, because Funboy's now on the floor.
Yep. Tony Todd. I forgot Tony Todd.
I know. I forget. Yeah.
Now I think he's dead or dying.
Oh yes, he's been stabbed with morphine needles. It looks like
several.
So, yeah, I think he's
syringes.
He does not have much time left. I clearly missed that part. I try not to look at my phone when I'm watching movies for the podcast because, I don't want to do that type of stuff where I go, is Funboy dead? And clearly he's dead. I did the exact same thing in the beginning of the movie. I must have looked down or something and I missed the 1 year later title. And so when he was fighting Tintin, he was like, Halloween's not until tomorrow. I was like, is this whole movie taking place in one night? I was like, he got buried. How did he get buried in one night? And then I realized I think 2 seconds later, Eric says 1 year ago, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. It must have said 1 year later and I missed it. And then watching it, popping it in right now when we started recording, I saw the 1 year later title and I was like, that would have helped a lot if I had just seen that part. Well, Stu, I would be curious to know what you would rate this film. I kind of have a feeling our ratings are going to be pretty similar on this one, but yeah, what would you rate The Crow?
I'm going back and forth right now. I do enjoy this movie. I really like this movie. But from a critical standpoint, it could be so much better. And it's gonna be tough, but I think I'm going to have to give it 3 out of 5 crows.
3 out of 5 crows. So just out of curiosity, what were you going back and forth between? Was it between 2.5 and 3 or 3 and 3.5?
3 and 3.5.
That's you and I are on the exact same page because that's exactly where I was. Like I said, there's moments of the movie that I love. And so there's a part of me that wants to kind of give it 3.5. But ultimately, I'm in the same. But I'm going 3 as well. I think it's a good movie. It's one I could see myself popping in maybe a little bit more often than every 20 years, like I didn't. But but I don't see myself watching it like over and over and over. It's not like a yearly watch type of thing for me or anything like that. Yeah. I do like it. I would like to get it maybe in a higher quality physical media, but yeah, 3 out of 5, I think is what I would give it as well. Well, we'd love to know what you think about The Crow. Is it your favorite movie of all time? And we are completely we missed the whole thing and you need to explain to us why we're so wrong. Let us know. You can always let us know at cinemaheroes.com. You can also comment on our Instagram or tweet at us. Both handles are at Cinema Heroes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you, of course, can leave a comment below. Please do leave a comment below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.